Welcome back to my channel. You already know it's your boy Hood Diggity, the Rock Reactor, back with another video. Yes, sir. Before I proceed, let me know where you tapping in from. Let me know what country, what city, what mountain, what hill, what cave, what island, what planet, what universe. Let me know where you at. Represent your hood. Yes, sir. A world of love to my Ukraine, an abundance of peace for my Ukraine. As I stand with God, I stand with Ukraine. Yes, sir. Well, this came back up on the news. The fact that Trump not really considering sending tomahawks to Ukraine. Now, there's a debate here, and two different sides could think different. Now, the people of Ukraine, which is the people that are really going through it, getting bombed left and right. They're even bombing kindergarten schools. My man has no heart whatsoever. And the people from Ukraine, I can understand with them. I definitely sympathize with them. What they probably think is bring those tomahawks quick. We need those tomahawks because if not, Putin is going to do his way with us. I get that. I definitely get that. Then Trump, on the other side, is thinking if he sends those tomahawks, it's going to escalate the issue. I think also the American people think that they actually need the tomahawks. So that's the debate, basically. He also think that he can still bargain with Putin. Now, I kind of go with Trump. Because at the end of the day, Trump is just not doing nothing. As you can see, he's testing nuclear missiles. Also, he's doing nuclear tests just like Putin is. So he's letting them know, hey, if you're not playing, we're not playing either. But let's take a look. Let's take a listen on this. Russia's war on Ukraine. Let's see exactly what's going on, guys. And before we do, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell. Hit the like button. Any donations to my channel will be greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is on the screen. Let's get it.
President Trump says he's not really considering sending US Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. His comments follow repeated attempts by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to secure the long-range weapons and expand Kyiv's striking distance into Russia. The US president told reporters on Sunday there was no final straw for Russia's Vladimir Putin that would signal he's not ready to end the conflict.
There's no final straw. Sometimes you have to let it fight it out. And they're fighting it out. And it's been a tough war for Putin. He's lost a lot of soldiers, maybe 1 million. That's a lot of soldiers. And it's been tough for Ukraine. It's been tough with both. Sometimes you have to let it, just get poured out.
CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Layton joins me now. Always good to have you with us.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Rosemary. Thank you so much.
So, Colonel, what's happening right now on Ukraine's front lines, especially around Pokrovsk, and why is this fight so critical?
Well, Pokrovsk is kind of that, basically a node where all of the forces are coming together. So you have about 170,000 Russian troops that are massed around or near Pokrovsk. Those troops are being used partially to move into the city, and they're basically occupying the southern parts of the city. Now, according to some reports, they're about 60%. They control about 60% of Pokrovsk. Other reports say that they control less than that. But regardless, Pokrovsk is a major point of contention right now between the Ukrainian forces that are trying to defend that area and the Russian forces that are trying to take it over. So Pokrovsk is important because it's basically that southern anchor point in a kind of a belt of fortifications that the Ukrainians have in the western part of the Donetsk Oblast region that is still controlled by Ukraine. If Pokrovsk were to fall, it would not only impact Ukrainian supply lines, but it would also impact the ability of the Ukrainians to hold on to that part of the Donetsk Oblast. So that would then mean that the Donbas region would almost entirely be controlled if the Russians move forward from Pokrovsk by the Russians.
So basically, Pokrovsk, as I understand, is like a pipeline. If they lose that, they lose the route. they lose that pipeline there.
And Colonel, President Donald Trump reiterated Sunday that he's not really considering sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, but left open the possibility that this decision could change. He also said that, quote, sometimes you have to let it get fought out. Now, what does all of this signal to you as the US pursues a ceasefire deal with Russia?
Yeah, this kind of signals an inexplicable, I should say, reluctance by President Trump to actually get Ukraine into a position where it can have real bargaining power in any negotiations. So the Ukrainians have been able to do a lot of heavy lifting on their own with some drones and missiles that they've developed indigenously that allow them to attack Russian targets basically pretty far from the front line. But what the Tomahawk would do, depending on the model that the Ukrainians would get, it would give them a range of anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 miles, so up to around 3,000 or so kilometers. And what that would do is that would put at risk a large portion of Russia's military-industrial base. And that, of course, would be something the Russians don't want to have, but it would certainly give Ukraine a lot of leverage. And the fact that President Trump is, basically reluctant at the moment, at least, to provide the Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine makes it a bit more difficult for the Ukrainians not only to achieve some of the goals that they're trying to achieve, but it also signals a kind of a wait and see attitude on the part of the United States. And unfortunately, that's going to cost a lot of Ukrainian and Russian lives.
Why do you think President Trump is reluctant to hand over Tomahawks?
Well, I think
By him not giving, you see, it's like a catch-22. The way I feel it, the way I see it, it's like a catch-22. Now, he said that if he gives those Tomahawks, if he doesn't, it's going to cost a lot of Ukrainian and Russian lives. But if he does, it's also going to be costing a lot of Ukrainian and Russian lives, because it's going to it can escalate into a nuclear war. World War III. So, I mean, you kind of have, maybe I'm wrong. This is what I'm thinking. But it's a catch-22 where regardless, one could escalate to something. And at the end of the day, Trump, I believe Trump feels that he has to be careful with the moves that he make with Russia, because he doesn't want to be responsible if this escalates into something catastrophic. Or more catastrophic, should I say.
He doesn't want to get into a situation with President Putin of Russia where it adversely impacts Russian-U.S. relations. Now, Russian-U.S. relations aren't that good right now anyways, so at this particular point, it wouldn't probably make that much difference in terms of the atmospherics. But the other thing is that this could serve as an escalatory excuse for the Russians, and they could then use a lot of their caliber missiles, for example, which could, even though they've used them already against Ukraine, they could intensify the barrages, and they could basically intensify the strikes that they are conducting against Ukraine's energy infrastructure and other aspects of their critical infrastructure.
And Colonel, how likely is it that Ukraine's targeting of Russia's energy infrastructure is making any difference? And what's the latest on Europe's goal of buying and transferring US weapons to Ukraine?
So as far as the Ukrainians striking the Russian energy sector, it's actually making quite a bit of difference. The estimates are around 20% of Russia's oil refining capacity has actually been curtailed by the Ukrainian strikes. And we see evidence with long gas lines at the petrol stations throughout Russia. We see evidence of other shortages within the Russian economy that could also adversely impact their ability to supply their war machines. So these attacks are having an impact. And that could, of course, mean that the Russians will either find other ways to move their forces forward, into Ukraine, or they're going to be stalled out. And right now, it seems that they're basically being stalled out, with a few exceptions, possibly around Pokrovsk, but also in some other areas of Ukraine. But gains that the Russians are making are fairly minor at this point, and that's due in large part to what the Ukrainians can do. As far as the Europeans are concerned, they are moving some weapon systems into Ukraine. The process is slow. It's not fast enough for the Ukrainians right now to achieve some of their medium-term goals, and that is something that is going to impact the Ukrainian war effort basically negatively at this particular point in time.
Colonel Cedric Layton, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Let's go to CNN's Claire Sebastian joining us live from London with the latest on the conflict and the president's comments. Claire.
Yeah, good morning, Brian. I think, look, the evidence is that Ukraine was not imminently expecting Tomahawks. We know that when Zelensky left his meeting a couple of weeks ago in Washington, D.C. with President Trump, he said he was, quote, realistic about this. And of course, we see certainly over the weekend and overnight into this morning, Ukraine continues with its own long-range strikes into Russian territory, targeting energy and military infrastructure. I think on the comment, let them get it fought out, that is perhaps more unnerving for Ukraine. It echoes rhetoric that we heard from President Trump after that ill-fated meeting between him and Zelensky in February. And it sort of smacks.
See, he's saying they let it get fought out. But, you know, by him letting them know that he's testing nuclear missiles, just like Putin is, I think he's letting them know that there's a limit to that. There's a limit to letting it get fought out. See, I don't think that President Trump is just not doing nothing at all. By him doing that, he's letting them know that if the war escalates to such a point, he's going to be there. I believe that right now, what President Trump is doing is he's letting them know that sometimes the best move is no move. Sometimes you have to let it sit out and see what is. I think President Trump is trying to see what's Putin's next move. You understand? I believe that's the thing. And he's trying to hurt them in the pocket. You have to also understand that at the end of the day, President Trump is a businessman. And what I love about President Trump is that President Trump works for the American people. I understand that internally, a lot of people don't agree with his internal politics. But when it comes to his external politics, President Trump is a beast because he's a businessman. So he thinks like a businessman at the end of the day.
Of perhaps walking away from the whole issue, washing his hands of the whole attempt to bring peace to Ukraine, which would be very bad news for Ukraine. They have been fighting to keep the US engaged, particularly when it comes to the issue of post-war security guarantees. And I think, you know, letting them fight it out, we're seeing elements of that play out in Ukraine right now. Russia is concentrating its efforts around the strategic town of Pokrovsk and Donetsk on the eastern front. President Zelensky says that Russia has amassed a force of some 170,000 troops in the area. Just for context, that is almost 3 times the pre-war population of Pokrovsk. It's about 2.5 times the size of the British regular army. So it is an enormous force. But for context, they've been trying to take this town, which sits on some key roads leading towards other fortress towns in Donetsk. They've been trying to take it for over a year, and they still haven't, though Ukraine acknowledges the situation there is increasingly difficult. So I think, look, fighting it out could take years, and that's why for Ukraine, US support is so critical. Technology like the Tomahawks is so critical, not only because of what it is and its range and its power, but because it could shift the calculation in Moscow as to how long they themselves can drag out this war, Brian.
And they continue to analyze basically the president's every single word about the conflict. Claire Sebastian for us. Claire.
And guys, just so you know, I'm with the Ukrainian people. And I do understand that if I was to be in Ukraine, the people that actually going through it, you may think different. You may say, no, we need those Tomahawks now. We need the Tomahawks. We need them. I understand. They are going through it. So it's just a matter. There's a lot of opinions depending on from what perception. There's a lot of different opinions. I try to think what president. I could kind of understand, sympathize, or understand President Trump. And I also understand the people of Ukraine needing our tomahawks ASAP. So let me know what you guys think, guys. My people from Ukraine, you know I'm with you. I'm doing this for you. Let me know basically what you think, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know what's going to happen. I think sometimes no move is the best move. So I kind of sympathize with Trump, but then again, I'm not in Ukraine going through it and getting bombed, so I understand that. Guys, let me know, and of course, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. Any donations to my channel will be greatly appreciated. My PayPal account is on the screen. Love you, Ukraine. Peace, love, and God bless.